Oi, what's up? It's Demented, and today I have another video that I've been kind of talking up for a while about just how to play main support, because I feel like it's been a long time coming of me literally just telling people how to do what is basically the entirety of the role, and the fact that I can condense it down as much as I have in this video to something that I'm assuming is going to be under like 20 minutes or some shit is going to be like very telling about how little the role actually like has to it. Yet if you watch any of my reviews, you can still see how big the gap is of why or why I get so like frustrated with seeing so many people that still are getting paid like so much money to just not play the simple role correctly. And I don't want to get into a tangent too early, so without further ado, let's get into it. So the number one thing that I wanted to bring up before literally anything is that uptime is the name of the game, and I'll keep referencing that in just this entire video and how it pertains to the main support role in general throughout this entire video, so be sure to like kind of keep that in mind, and I'll keep bringing it up. So if we want to start, we can start with Brig, because I think Brig is easily the most in terms of main support talent in Overwatch League specifically. And I've said this in reviews, and I will say this now, I don't think there's a good Brig and Owl. I don't care if you think LJG is good. The closest thing we have is Nisha, and I love Nisha, but a couple of the problems that I saw were like flail stuff, which is very minor, but also something that's very prevalent, because going back to, as I just said earlier, uptime is the name of the game, and how that pertains to Brig in particular is how often you have Inspire. If you don't know Inspire, just really quickly, is pretty much anytime you hit anyone with flail or just your regular attacks, you send out an AoE heal, and every time that you're either hesitating on it or just like you don't have good timing for it, it can really slow down how fast you get rally and just overall your efficiency. And that's where I guess it kind of comes into when do you want to be flailing people, and who do you want to be flailing? Because a lot of the times you hear me bring up in my reviews the term ego flail, which basically, if I was to describe an ego flail, I would basically set it up kind of like if you're on high ground, you're a Brig, and the other team's running dive, and they have, you know, they have like Monkey, they have Diva, they have like Tracer, they have fucking Echo, and then their backline you can't really worry about. So out of those four people, if you choose to flail the Tracer or go for a flail on the Tracer instead of taking a more given flail to use, such as the Winston or more prominently the Diva, you are dumb. And that is what I consider an ego flail, and that is basically taking a larger risk for little to no extra reward. If you hit it, cool, but if you don't, then you look all the worse and all the dumber, to be completely frank. If that is the only option you have to go for a flail there, that is fine, because I also bring this up in reviews that I don't like, I'll never look at a player's ability to miss a whip unless it's like fairly consistent that they're not hitting whips. Then I'll like try to decipher it more. But if I just see that you're like, you know, you miss a couple whips here and there, that's fine. But if there's a better alternative, like using, and things get brought up a lot about ult batteries being tanks, and you can kind of view that as an Inspire battery, as well as stuff like Bob is a way that you can constantly be ticking Inspire. I believe I've known recently that you can flail, you get 3 free flails on Bob before Bob expires, so that's 3 free ticks of Inspire that you literally just have to play passively. And Brig is a very reactive character. You wait for people to come to you, and then you like peel, shove them off, and you piss them off while doing it. That's why everyone hates Brig. And it's also worth mentioning that Hammond Mines are both meleeable to get to get Inspire off of, as well as you can whip them. The whipping, though, if you do it, is very, very precise. I will say that much. So keep that in mind if you're going to use that. But overall, in terms of like where you want to be positioning wise, you want to be not exactly with your Ana at all times. You want to be in a place where you're kind of the middleman. You don't want to be inting, you don't want to be frontlining by any means, but you also don't want to only be in the backline. You want to be able to help everyone that is ever in need. And I also wanted to bring up that if you do miss whip, because I'm bringing a lot into whip and saying that, you know, as soon as you hit this whip, that's all your healing. That's where a shitload of your healing is going to be from. That's where your burst is. And if you miss it, then what do? Now, this is where bash comes into play. So, a lot of the times when I bring up bashing, I tend to, if I'm going to, first off, you never aggressively bash, in my opinion, unless you're aggressively bashing to get in a position where you can 100% hit a whip shot. Because regardless, you should never go through a Brig ult cycle without getting Inspire out of one, if not both of the, at least one of the cooldowns should get you Inspire, realistically. So if we're thinking about this, there's so many people that aggressively bash that do the combo that I hate the most is the really old Tracer one-shot combo that people way overuse, where people bash and hit once and then instantly flail them. And it's like, that's cool, but very dumb, because you have two utilities to peel for yourself, and if you misuse them, you're dead, because that's how Brig works now. So get used to it. And tying this back into what happens if you miss whip shot, basically your way of getting Inspire after is you don't need to go into panic mode. Definitely do not go into panic mode, but you can start slowly getting closer to the enemy, not frontlining as I've said before, but you can get closer. And as soon as you're like, I don't know how else to say it other than auto attacking, but you basically just left click and wait until you get that proc of Inspire and immediately bash away. It gives you a chance to overextend, and if you're realistically being cautious about it, you're more often than not going to back into the kind of center of your team as you bash away, as well as you're going to get that whip back. So if people try to chase you out, you then have a way to peel them off of you. Shield dancing is also like an incredibly effective thing that people just don't do enough or as much, because if you are in a 1v1 situation, first off, never let your shield break, because that is a crucial part of Brig's kit, because that, you know, that denies you, again, the shield dancing, as well as being able to get your bash off, so that limits your mobility and limits your stun. So be very, very cautious about taking too much extra shield poke or just kind of taking too much stray damage for no real reason. And all of this again ties into ultimately having the most Inspire up time possible. Also, I forgot to mention this when I was actually recording the Brig section, but in terms of pack usage for Brig, pretty much if you see a tank that's critical and you don't think can get healed, double pack. Never double pack a Tracer. I will end you. If you see DPS that are taking duels, you can, if you see someone that's dueling and they're critical, then you can send them 2 packs. If it's a you know, obviously you always want to save your 1 pack for your Ana, and I'm trying to think of more in-depth ways to say it, but that's all I got, so peace. Next, I want to talk about Lucio, because Lucio is getting misplayed a lot in my eyes. And recently, if you follow me on Twitter, you would be able to have seen that I retweeted a statistics sheet of basically the I guess kind of contrast between specific Overwatch League players and seeing where people are staying on the I guess heal aura, as well as how often they're staying on the speed aura. And with that being said, and obviously some people were even bringing up that like part of the speed aura is speeding people back from spawn or just coming back from spawn in general, but realistically, the way that I see Lucio and the way that I see this game in general, if we're breaking this down really simply, Overwatch is a ultimate based game, and one of those amazing ults to have is beat, especially because of how versatile it is in tempo changing, in, you know, you can be very, very aggressive with it, very defensive with it, you can do so much with beat, but that doesn't matter if you're building it slower than the other person. If not, you just building it worse. Because ultimately, the way that I don't have numbers. I don't do numbers. People should know that by now. That I'm not someone who's gonna like pull up an entire statistic sheet and be like, you should be on average getting beat every blah 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 seconds. But what I do know is that if you do not have beat, I want you to, and this is theoretically, I do not advise this, shove a broomstick up your ass. Again, this is hypothetical. Do not shove a real one up your ass. And then play like you have that broomstick up your ass and play as passive as possible. And that is where a lot of people get thrown off, and people are like, I have a little bit more of an aggressive Lucio style. I think it's really effective, you know, how I can displace people and whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. I guarantee you it does not matter, and I'll tell you why. Because ultimately, and I've already said this, that ults are obviously what makes the fucking world go round in Overwatch, but if you're playing like you got that broomstick up your ass and you see that the other Lucio's isn't, the other team's Lucio isn't, you're now changing the, like, even the neutral game in your favor just from playing better. Because if you're thinking logically, think about if you are at 50% to beat and the other team has it, and the other team aggressively beats on to you, you can speed off of it, but then you don't have a beat of your own to re-engage. Now, another question, a follow-up question, how much more effort do you think you would have to put in to get your little quirky fucking aggressive Lucio playstyle points? How hard and how much better do you have to play as opposed to someone who just plays passively? I'm not saying you can't take risks. If your fucking diva wants to call for a dive and you wanna go fucking dive their Ana or pressure their BAP and get fucking lamp out, be my fucking guest. All I'm saying is, like, speed amps are not always necessary, and you go from point A to point B. As soon as you get to point B, you're on heals. And if you're not, you're losing value for no fucking reason whatsoever. And this is what gets me so pissed off. Same with this whole crossfading thing. Stop it. Because crossfading has been kind of normalized in some cases. It started off as, oh, it's actually really effective if you're, you know, in a duel to be crossfading back and forth. And I'll bring this up as a weird point, because the way that I think about you, and I say you generally just because I want to feel more direct when I'm talking to the audience, I guess. But I view it like a league skill, and if you don't know how league skills work, you basically level up a whole bunch of abilities. You get to, like, max stuff, quote unquote, at certain times, certain levels, whatever. Why this is important is because there's people that think it's more effective, and there's a reason these people are very bad, that try to level up all of their abilities all, like, at the same time, and don't try to max something at first. And what I want you to do is get all of your fucking healing done. Think about it like it's fucking homework or some shit, and you get all your fucking, the more you're healing, the closer you're getting to being able to take that broomstick out of your ass and get your little aggressive fix out, your quirky aggressive fix. That's fine, but give yourself the leeway Because if you're doing sloppy on building beat, why the fuck are you now going to not only slack on building beat, but slack and then get even less value by going in aggressively doing your own thing? That's where it's fucking insane to me. If you want to split off and do something for like a split second, like a small displacement, that's fine. But long, drawn-out displacements, this video is going to be way over 20 minutes. I don't even know why I said that. Anyways, but like it's a very weird thing to me because so many people just seem to not understand it. And I'm sorry my chair is creaking. I don't know why it is. But I'm so baffled by the amount of like, because people talk about min-maxing. And what that means is like getting the most for the least. And if you're constantly crossfading, you're trying to do two things at once, when instead, if you just like full send staying on heels, get that beat built up, then as soon as you beat, as soon as you do whatever, because as soon as you're done fucking getting that beat, you don't have to worry about amp usage anymore. You don't have to worry about healing. You're fine. You're free. You're a free person. You can do whatever the fuck you want as soon as you're done building beat. That's your number one priority. And same thing with as soon as you beat, as soon as you effectively use the beat, you use it, let's say you use it aggressively. You go aggressive, you beat, you go, you Reddit kill fucking 5 people. Fine. Sure. Whatever. In your fucking dreams, yes, you kill 5. Now, you got your fix, get back down to business. We gotta get this shit done. And if you don't hammer it in and you start playing a little bit more loose again, that's when other people are gonna gain on you. But if you really want to stand out from everyone else, just build beat. I promise. Now that was a lot of talk about crossfading, a lot of talk about what to be on win and amp usage for the most part. Because amp usage is basically just, if you see the enemy team's Lucio engaging with speed, which more oftentimes than not, you'll see people being like, okay, we want to rotate from here to here. And we're like, okay, so as soon as the rotation starts, speed gets amped. Now that's fine for that team, but if you call to engage on that team and engage with a heal amp, you're now a solid 20 to 30% above where the other person who just wasted their amp is, because they wanted to use it for speed and wanted to get their fix while you bunkered the fuck down and really honed in on when the engagement was happening and really made the most out of it ult charge wise. Which is why I'm so brutal about this shit, because it's like the way I describe it, I sound very condescending, and I know, because in my mind this is simple. This is not hard. This is basically it's disciplining yourself. It's being, let me chill on Redditing and trying to get a fucking highlight on something, and instead let me win first, and then we can worry about the highlights later, because the statistics are going to start speaking for themselves if you start playing really fucking well, and I promise you that. But the last thing that I want to get into is booping, because a lot of people are doing some weird shit with booping. So ultimately, there's a lot of things that go into booping because it's so versatile. You can like overextend people with a boop, but I'm gonna assume you know all that. So basically, if someone's already overextended, overextend them more with a boop. If people are trying to make a rotation, like boop their backline back a little bit, separate them in any way, shape, or form. You want to cause chaos. You want to give a little itty bitty pocket, and this is where I'm saying you can unfasten the broom that's far up your ass a little bit and go for those little displacements, those little things that are gonna have very big butterfly and domino effects, and encapsulate everything that can be seized from it. And I'm using very big words for no reason. I really just want to get the point across that it's not hard, but there's a couple interactions that I think people don't speak enough about, and it's a lot of the times because you're playing Lucio in a Ryan v Ryan matchup a lot of the time, right? So obviously, for the most part, people know always stay on the wall, and then whenever a you want to boop the other Ryan into your team, in most cases. But if you're staying buddy with your Ryan, a lot of the times your Ryan is going to be close enough to their Ryan, and there's some times that your Ryan's going to be very, very weak, and you booping the other team's Ryan back towards his team is now, instead of forcing the engagement on the time that the other team doesn't want to do it, you're now giving yourselves a little bit of a breathing space, as well as you giving yourself, as well as you're in current meta a Baptiste, if you're giving yourself that little bit of space, that little bit of leverage, you're now getting more value to your supports, including yourself. And I mean, assuming the broom is still up your ass. Now, that's one of the biggest interactions that I think just haven't been talked about. But overall, I'm saying this in the term of a very not advanced guide or advanced way. I'm talking to you like you're a normal fucking player. I know you're not dumb. I know the people that, like, if at all, watch my stuff aren't stupid, and that you know what you're doing in the basis. So I'm trying not to sound that condescending, but I want people to understand how much free value you're missing out on, because I feel like I'm one of the only people that knows about it, and that's why I started making videos in the first place, as well as I'm gonna start looking at other people, especially based on that new statistics sheet again that I brought up, that I really want to just in general like see how much of a one-to-one it is, because I know the biggest person to come out of that, and I'm sorry for getting sidetracked here, but I know the biggest outlier in that is Onsun J, by how much Onsun J heals, and I really want to see how that takes place in game, so expect a review on him very soon. But lastly, let's get into Mercy. So in my opinion, Mercy comes down a lot to pretty much beam priority, in terms of basically you almost never want to be pocketing tanks, because although you do build Valk very fast, you also are now taking away, like, if I'm thinking generally right now, if you're playing Mercy, you're more than likely playing with an Ana, and if I am again thinking generally, if you're playing that Ana, you're probably playing it with a Winston. Am I right? I think I'm right. So moving on from that, if you're damage boosting your monkey to build something like Primal, that's fine. But in terms of people who you absolutely will not be pocketing in this lineup, if I'm to throw something out there, if we're looking at like an Ashe Echo Ana monkey diva comp, and you're the Mercy in it, you can pocket the monkey and the DPS. And now you really need to hone in on like the timing for everything, as well as you don't need to always be looking at who you're pocketing. It is good in some cases, especially when you have a flyer, to make sure that you know what direction you're going in, as well as it's kind of reliant actually on dependent on the options that you use for Mercy, because I know that there are options, or there is the option where if you use Guardian Angel, you'll go to your beam target like whenever, which I think if you're able to master that's really fucking good. But if not, you know, it is what it is, to be honest. But like nonetheless, you can help people build ults. That's your main priority. And you're only healing your Ana and your DPS. If your tanks get below like half HP or something, you can maybe heal them a little bit, or just like use your brain, see where your Ana is. Like your awareness has to be like not even on some Giga Brain shit. You just have to know where everyone is. You have to know where the pieces are. And then also, assuming that you are confident in your Ana, you have to be confident in knowing that your Ana is going to heal said tanks, because those tanks are going to be taking damage to get nano in the end. So you spending extra time healing because you're like, oh, I want to get Valk, like, it's not where I stay. And that's where this is a little confusing. This part is because now I bring up going back to the line of uptime is the name of the game. And I even have down, like written down in my notes specifically, uptime is the name of the game as much as ults are. And the way I see how Mercy fits into this category is your uptime is now going to be basically poured into the DPS, because if let's say your Ana needs peels, or your Diva's low and your Ana needs peels, you peel your Ana and you're full healing your Diva. So you're spending a lot of time helping your Diva and your Ana, and that's fine. But that entire time that those two are slowly getting back into commission, let's say your Ashe is like cradled in a fucking corner, begging for heals, smashing the X key, hoping that you see anything out of that. And this is where it starts to be Mercy kind of gives other people extra uptime, because you give people a bit of a leeway. And in general, it's just really weird to me that like some people are so like adamant about always being pocketing someone no matter what. And it's like, it's not that you always have to be pocketing someone, but like your life is your ultimate your fucking ultimate value. As long as you're like, this is more physical uptime, I guess, for Mercy, that the longer you're alive, the more annoying you're gonna be, especially the longer fights go out, which in general, I think I don't know how, I guess, coherent I'm being, but like beam priority and how long the other people are up for, I think, are pretty much the two major things to worry about. And I mean, reses, it's pretty much just like, as soon as someone starts to get close to dying, or as soon as someone does die, you can immediately start kind of calculating a little bit, because again, I'm not a numbers person, but I know the feel of the game. I know how much damage something should do, how much damage I should take if I, like, you know, fly into a Roadhog or a fucking McCree, or a fucking Roadhog and a McCree, and all this shit. Like, if I know that I'm gonna take XYZ or X damage from flying into XYZ, then I can calculate how safe a res is, even if on the surface level it's like in their spawn. Like a very perfect example is like, if you have like a tracer or something, and your tracer is going for a one clip on a Zen, unluckily the Zen like does a complete flick, destroys your tracer, but immediately because of that, because he didn't trust himself, he was on like 1 HP, trances immediately. You see that, you see, okay, as long as there's no threat around, I can get this res off for free. And not only that, but now this fucking Zenyatta that fucking already pissed himself is now gonna be fuming because you just walked into their backline and disrespected the fuck out of them. Also, it's worth mentioning that the hitbox for reses in some cases, if you're on an elevation and you crouch down, sometimes you're able to res stuff on high grounds that you wouldn't normally be able to, which is really fucking beneficial actually. As well as obviously there's the age-old thing of if someone dies on a ledge, you fly to the ledge and like you res as you're falling. And I mean there's a couple more micro shit there too, but that's not really my place, I don't think. But I also want to bring up before I guess kind of wrap this up that I don't think BAP is what personally I don't consider BAP anyone that's super hard in the main sport category, but there's a bunch of videos and a bunch of like ways of how to min-max Baptiste in terms of healing output and damage overall. So if you want to do more research on that, that's not something that I'm into, because again I feel like that's a lot more of a numbers thing and that's kind of a headache for me. So I'll just stick to the easy things. Everyone else can go fuck themselves. So with that being said, I appreciate you all for watching, and I hope that this actually came out coherent. I was kind of second guessing myself a couple of times. I'm recording this at 5 in the morning. So as well, I think I could be completely pulling this out of my asshole, but if all things go according to plan, I believe I have a discussion video that could get lined up to come out on the same day as this. I don't want to promise anything, but that's the plan, and I don't know how often that's going to happen, but I really like making discussion videos, especially because they seem to get pretty well received, and also I'm starting to get like feedback in them from other people and just get talked to in general. And it means a lot to me, so I'm gonna keep doing them. So regardless, I appreciate the fuck out of all of you for watching up to this point. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter to know whenever I upload. And with that being said, I will see you when I see you. Later.